go live, but I'm thinking we are now on Leadership Redefined. We didn't see you last week, but we're back this week. Dr. Bernardo, how are you?
I'm good. I'm anxious to speak to Mr. Hauser.
Yes, really excited to speak to you. So we've obviously had a lot of people on this show, a lot of at different levels, corporate, K-12, higher education, you name it, we've had it. I don't know that we've had someone with your type of experience, Bob. And I'll let you explain your experience. You are a superintendent, so that's the obviously highest level in K-12, but you're in a unique district as far as geography and size. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit, but let you introduce yourself, and then we'll have a cool conversation around some of your leadership strengths and style and how you sort of approach the superintendency.
Sure, and thank you. I appreciate this opportunity, and hopefully someone or maybe others will appreciate and maybe learn from my experiences here. So like you referred to, I am superintendent of a very small pre-K through 12th grade school district out on the South Fork, east end of Long Island, about 15 miles from Montauk out here. The school district is only 9 square miles. However, it encompasses about 3 miles on the ocean. So the average waterfront, the value of a home on the water, on the ocean out here is no less than about $20 million. And if you come a little bit inland, the average price today with the rise in the market is about $3 million. So you can certainly find things a little bit less, and you'll certainly find homes upwards of $100 million easily out here. About 75% of the homes here are either investment homes or second homes. So the challenge we face right now is enrollment. Every time a home that's say valued at $3 million that was built maybe in the 50s or 60s is demolished, that's one less home that a family can either rent for a reasonable price or even purchase. So I've been here for 3 years now as superintendent, but I've been with the district for 11 years. So when I first started here, I was hired as an assistant superintendent for finance, for operations. And I would think, as most people might imagine, when you're in a small district, you do wear a lot of hats. We don't have many layers of management here. There's 4 administrators here, and then we go right down to our instructional staff and our non-instructional staff. So we have the same challenges any larger district might, same issues. We all operate under the same state education department guidelines, regulations, which change frequently. We may not have the volume of instances or situations, but we certainly encounter everything from homeless students to free and reduced price lunch programs to transportation problems and so on. So prior to getting to Bridgehampton, I was a math teacher, grade 7 through 12 math teacher. I got my start in New York City. I was hired as a 9th grade math teacher in the old Andrew Jackson High School, which eventually became a campus magnet school. So we
Gabriel
had about 4. Yeah, that's it. Gabriel Heights. Yep. So
I grew up right around there.
Wow, how it's changed. So that school had, believe it or not, about 4,000 kids, and it was literally four levels. So we had 4 separate high schools in one building that students from all 5 boroughs would apply to get in. It was not what they call a zone school, a zone public school. It was a public magnet school. So we had kids coming from all 5 boroughs. Some of them had 2-hour commutes just to get there by train. So that was a very interesting experience. And then I worked there for a year. And then I went out to the William Floyd School District, where I became a middle school 8th grade math teacher. Prior to actually getting into teaching, though, I was a certified public accountant. So I worked for a fairly large firm called Ernst & Young, way back in the day, Ernst & Winnie. So I have some experience in finance, I had some experience in numbers and math, and that's why it really gravitated me towards mathematics when I got in here. So I don't come to public education with the typical out of college at 22 experience. I didn't get into education until I was about 32 years old. So I have that private experience that I bring here, and that's good and that's bad. The positive piece is, from a management and from a leadership perspective, I feel my experience in the private sector helps. As much as people don't want to admit, public education in my eyes, or at least in my district, it's a business. We bring revenue in and we have expenditures that go out. And each year, that's a challenge, continuing the revenue stream and then being able to keep the expenditures under control. So in its simplistic form, my experience has helped me. My private experience has helped me here. But also, I do feel, and I'm a very strong advocate of leaders having to have spent quality instructional time in a classroom. I believe if you've never spent time in a classroom, and I don't mean to speak negatively about someone who might be a school counselor, someone who might be a school psychologist, in those two particular roles, but I do feel it's important to be able to understand what goes on in a classroom and what are the expectations in a classroom. Certainly, the more experience you have grade level wise, from elementary to middle school to high school, that's of a much bigger benefit. But I do feel it's important that you have to have that time.
Bob, how has that shaped your leadership style? That connection to instruction, that belief that you need to have that instruction experience, or at least impart some of that experience to be an effective leader. How does that impact your leadership style?
So, at its very basic form, to be able to walk into a classroom and to do an observation, I find it would be difficult, in my opinion, to gain the respect of a teacher if you really had no idea of what the expectations are, of what it's like to be in a classroom, what it's like to handle certain types of students, whether they're gifted students or whether they're students who are requiring academic intervention services. You have to have that experience from a leadership and a management perspective, I feel, to really gain the respect of those individuals, those teachers who you are about to observe, offer constructive criticism, or be able to even appreciate someone who's doing a great job. And then I'll just take it one step further. I think the relationship with union representation is important. If you have never been in a classroom, I find at least this is my opinion, it's difficult to be able to work positively with union representatives if you're someone who's completely from the outside, who's, because you're going to have uncomfortable moments as a leader. You're going to have situations where discipline is involved, or you're going to have situations where maybe a teacher improvement plan has to be issued. And how do you do that if you haven't really spent time as a teacher? I don't think we hear those examples too often of people who've never spent time in a classroom. Have they been in public education? But I just feel, from my leadership style, I would have a difficult time relating and gaining the respect of staff and unions if I didn't have that background.
It sounds like it's it's an empathy thing, it's an understanding thing, it's a trust thing, right? All of those things are embedded in what you're talking about.
Right.
I'm also very interested in the probably, I agree with you, the unpopular sentiment that it's a business, right? Essentially, running a school is like a business, and the purpose of education is really to have these students ready for the world beyond school, and that too is not always at the forefront of conversation, but it's the reality of us, our success as a society, right? And there's layers to that. You could debate that all day, but I was interested in that aspect as well. And I want to hear from Rich too, of course.
Thank you. I always look for an angle to take, Robert, and and I like that Al has said what he said, because I just wrote down a business frame. And if you recall, we spoke about this way back when we had some coursework together about Bowman and Deal. We speak about 4 frames of any organization. One of them is political, another one is human resource, which I hear you ringing the bell about quite a bit, structural approaches and symbolic approaches. And the business frame, I'm not sure where that fits into this, but let's put that to the side for a moment. But clearly you need to have money in the coffee can to operate the things that need to be operated. I want to make clear, there are folks who are listening to this from all around the country. And the way you described Bridgehampton was that it was a very rich place in terms of its tax base. I think it's one of the richest in the country. And that's because of some of the Jerry Seinfeld people who lived down on the water. But we also know, as you pointed out, that you have homeless situations, you have socioeconomic free and reduced lunch issues as well. Tell us a little bit about the demographics of the student body.
So that's a great point that you bring up. We are one of the few schools that actually qualifies for what's called the Community Eligibility Program, which is the free and reduced, the free breakfast and the free lunch program, not the reduced price. So every student that attends our school receives a free breakfast and a free lunch. And in order to be eligible for that program, you have to have a certain population of students who are, economically challenged. And you would never think, when I rattle off $100 million home on the ocean or a $3 million 3-bedroom tiny little ranch inland, that we would have that problem here, but we do. And it's actually gotten worse here because there are fewer and fewer places for people to live.
Yes.
Fewer and fewer places for people to afford. And when they do find a place that they have to pay an exorbitant amount of rent, it puts an undue burden on a family to have to pay for all the other basic things in life, like food, to be able to survive. So, we have probably over 50% of our students here come from an economically disadvantaged background.
How does that impact how your staff operates with those?
Yeah, and also to follow how you lead, like the dichotomy of that is pretty unique. There's always like, I think it's usually more scaffolded, right? It's usually more like you have some that are on completely free breakfast, lunch, some free and reduced, some in the middle of the road, some with the money. But here you have pretty much extreme demographic, right? Really extreme demographic. Yeah,
no doubt. And another great topic that you're bringing up, because as a leader, what I've learned here too is when I come to work every day, and I try my best to get into 5 classrooms a day. I try to push in or pop into a classroom, and I try to spend about 10 minutes in the classroom, just observing. I have a good relationship here with the teachers. They'll allow me to ask a question or two of the students. But every time I'm in that classroom, I never take it for granted what I feel a student may have come or may not have come to school with. We just found out just before the break that there was a family of four children literally living in a pop-up camper in Cedar Point, the campground out in East Hampton here. And we all know how cold it's been this winter. And to think that there was, I say past tense, a family that was living in those conditions. When they come to school each day, it's a great feeling as a leader to know that we are doing the best we can to start those kids off with a hot meal, breakfast, and that there's a lunch coming. If they need clothing, we can easily help them with that. But so many times, I think there are people who either work here or people who perceive our school district as being a very wealthy school district with children who don't need anything. They may pull up in their beautiful cars. They may wear their nice branded clothing and all, but that's not everybody. And you've really got to be keen as a leader to look for those signs of students who are struggling, perhaps because of their poverty.
It overlaps with that. If I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken. Please correct me if I am. You have a measure of folks who are competition to contend with. So you mentioned the enrollment is low and sometimes threatened. So you know you have charter schools nearby, parochial school. You have a very famous, well-heeled private school not too far from you, and that cuts into not only into your enrollment, but your distribution of students as well.
No doubt. It's been a constant struggle here. Pre-pandemic, the two private schools in the community were, one of them had packed up, closed up shop, and went back to their home base a little further out east. So they, for the most part, abandoned the elementary model that they had here, which was good for us because it's probably another 20-mile commute for any parents to bring their children to that main private school. And then the other one that we have here, which operates very similar to us, very small private school, financially as well. They were struggling, and we really felt just before the pandemic that they probably weren't going to last another year. And now that has just reversed itself with the influx of families coming from the city. We have experienced a tremendous boom in enrollment in the private schools. But I don't want to focus, on what the pandemics necessarily has done here. But even pre-pandemic, we've always had that challenge of wealthier families and their view of public education, just their perception of public education, and shunning the private school, the public school, not even wanting to give the public school an opportunity to educate their children. They were almost automatic. Whatever the tuition is, we'll pay it to the private school, just so our children do not have to go to, quote, that public school. So that's a great point that you bring up, and we've managed to overcome.
Well, you also, if I'm not mistaken, forgive me for my information might be a little dated. Making lemonade out of lemons is something you should be proud of, because I know you had some good. I'm not sure I'm gonna have the right term for it. Cooperative education approaches, and we were trying to train students to pick up skills that were needed in the area. Were the medical services you had in? I think
So,
landscaping.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things, based on being out on the east end of Long Island, whether you're on the North Fork or the South Fork, agriculture is still a big business out here. And it's changed. It's not so much farming as it was back in the day, but it is vineyards, restaurants. Farm to table is a big topic out here, and a lot of the restaurants promote that. You have breweries, in a sense, popping up. So, not that we want to necessarily steer kids who are in school towards those industries, but those agriculture out here is really thriving. And for some of the students who decide to stay here, that's a great place for them to focus with their education. So we have a greenhouse here.
Mm-hmm.
We we teach our students how to actually grow their own vegetables. We have probably 25 apple trees that are here. We have some livestock now that are here, and we have a New York State Department of Education certified CTE program in agriculture. So we have students who do come here from other schools. The parents actually place their children here and pay the tuition, or we have other districts who place their students here. So we've really focused on agriculture within the school. we have a farm stand right out on Montauk Highway that we lease the property. And starting from Mother's Day all the way through Labor Day, we allow the students to operate that farm stand there. So yes, we have, really focused at least on that particular venue of education for the kids.
My word is, Al will fill the blank in before I finish the sentence. My word is futuring. And to me, that's futuring. You recognize that there's a need out in your community, in your area, and you've adapted that need to changes in your school district to do a lot of other districts probably should be considering, and either don't have the courage or the patience or the skill sets necessarily to affect. That's a pretty sweeping change.
Yep. And it's something that's, it's easily overlooked.
Yes.
We just had a school district up island, probably 40 miles west of here, just called the other day wanting to come out here and see our CTE program and what we actually do and how we incorporate it into the curriculum and the work-based learning component to it. So we get a lot of attention from that. And I think being a small school district, we're able to focus on a program like that. I didn't mention robotics. We have a very big and robust robotics program through the FIRST robotics program that we offer to our secondary students. So we're a kind of a niche school, I say. We're a public school that tends to operate like a private school.
And that's, forgive me for telling you what to think, but because you're thinking it before I'm saying it, that's about a futures-based school. And that's to your credit and to your stakeholders for feeling comfortable enough to work within your guidance and within the community support to recognize that schools can't be the way they were, whether it's Bridgehampton or something further west, east, north, or south.
Yeah. And, we can't do it alone. We have what I almost want to call them silent partners, whether they are business people in the community, whether they are not-for-profit organizations. We have a great relationship with Paddlers for Humanity that does fundraising events out on the East End. They do a kayak or a paddleboard event from Montauk all the way to Block Island to raise money for education. And they have even helped us start and maintain and even enhance some great programs here, such as robotics, such as our oceanography club, where we're able to partnership with SUNY, the Southampton campus, the maritime part of the campus out there in Southampton, to allow students to go out and tag sharks with the tagging equipment. So a lot of the things that we try to do here relate to almost a career once students leave our district. If they don't go to college, or even if they do, how would these different programs that we offer benefit them? And, you don't have to offer 100 programs. If you offer 3 or 4 quality programs, in my opinion, it's more meaningful, as long as you can dedicate the necessary resources and you can get the buy-in of the students and the buy-in of the community and be able to invite people. Our robotics program, you'd be amazed as to how we have retired teachers who come here at night to help the kids. We have partners, someone in Hauppauge School District comes out here to help us. And we have somebody who used to work at General Motors spends time with the kids. So
sounds like, Bob, it sounds like we're going to finish up in just a few minutes here, but I'm impressed by your, obviously, the futures-based outlook. Your meeting, your responsiveness sticks out to me. Your responsiveness to the community, to the needs of your students, your dedication to connecting real-world experiences to education and having that as a bridge to what's beyond is really encouraging, to be quite honest. Rich, we see a lot and talk to a lot of different folks, and something like CTE is a bad word in a lot of places. The real world connection and that experiential piece is an afterthought at best in most places. for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like sort of the fabric of everything you're doing, an essential component. And we've all been in education for a long time, Rich, longer than both of us, right? But to have that dichotomy of the demographic that you have and the private schools infringing on your boundaries, and we know with a lot of money comes resources, but it comes power too, and there's a challenge in that as well, and navigating through that. That piece politically is probably a challenge too. So you have a lot of different things that, even though it's a small district, and oh, by the way, you're in New York, but most districts are small. Most districts are less than, say, 2,500 students, even throughout the country. I'm not sure everybody realized that, but statistically, most are smaller districts. Maybe not quite as small as yours, Bob, but it's amazing to me that you're doing what you're doing. Even though it's small, there's still a lot going on there, and you still have the big problems that a larger district has, for sure. Rich, just a chance to kind of final thoughts, and then we'll give Bob the closing thoughts overall.
Yeah, two words pop in, and these words you and I use a lot, Al. Here at Leadership Redefined, Bob, we talk about organic and we talk about synthesizing, and it just kind of, it gives me a, I don't want to get over dramatic with you, Bob, but it kind of gives me a little bit of a chill, a positive chill, to see that a district leadership and the community that supports that kind of leadership enables, promotes, supports, is open to some of those changes that you have there. I mean, lots of places have clubs and so forth, but it sounds like you have engendered within your own strategic plans over there has been really forward thinking. And a lot more people should be coming out to Bridgehampton to see that, rather than the ocean. See what you're doing out there. You can make a dissertation out of that.
Well, closing thoughts, Bob, from you? And we'd love to have you back on again, of course. We always say that to those guests that we enjoy speaking to. But any closing thoughts or remarks from you? And thank you overall.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. My pleasure. Just to summarize, I would say from a leadership perspective, I think to be an effective leader in education today, you have to support programs. And I don't mean just giving a nod or saying, yes, I support a program. As a leader, you have to actively support that program. Yeah. When a teacher comes up with an idea, you have to help that teacher. I mean, you can't expect people to do this alone. So if it involves getting out into the community, if it involves, trying to get more resources for the program, a leader, to me, has to get involved. You've got to be in there with the kids. You got to be in there with the teacher. You've got to feel it and experience it, because you're really the salesperson. Many times you're the one who, as the superintendent or as an assistant superintendent, you're the one who often has to go out to the community, or you've got to go to the parents. You've got to ask them for support, or the board. And it's good to be able to speak from the heart, from experience, and also to have a vision that you can see the program benefiting students at some point in time. And that's a big expectation of just a person as a leader to be able to do that.
Well, thank you, Bob. Really appreciate having you on. Rich, thank you as always. Next time, hopefully we get Anthony in here and he could be part of the conversation as well. But we really appreciate your time, Bob, and love to have you on back again.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Good seeing you guys, and I look forward to the next.
Good to see you. Hello to David.